Thank you very much. Shalom to everyone who's listening and looking. Our subject this afternoon is Kavod. This is a term that appears in a number of times in Pirkei Avot, and we're choosing one of the Mishnayot where it appears. I think the topic is timely for three reasons. One reason is that connected with the corona problem, they speak of a race. There's a race among scientists to find a cure. This whole idea of a race is related to Kavod, and we'll speak about that more later on. I mean, the idea that who gets the honor of being the first to find a cure. Another connection is that this week was the week of Lag BaOmer. We're still in the Omer period, which is, according to the Midrash, is the time that the students, their plague came to the students of Rabbi Akiva. The 24,000 students died on account of the plague, but the plague stopped on Lag BaOmer. That's the reason for the celebration. Now the Talmud gives us the reason why were these 24,000 students, why did they die? What was his punishment for? And the answer was, Shelo nahagu kavod ze bazeh. They didn't show kavod and display kavod one to the other. And so obviously this is a topical topic, the timely topic. The third reason is, I would say, questionable. It's that in Israel there's always interest in politics, and people associate politicians with kavod. I think that's overdone somewhat, and but nevertheless, there certainly is a matter of kavod, an issue of kavod with the way politicians behave, but I think all of us behave that way. So, at any rate, let me begin and let me ask to display item number 1, of the Mekorot. So, okay, that's fine now. I should simply translate the word kavod into English. But it turns out that the translation is not one way of rendering the word. Kavod can be sometimes used as dignity, sometimes respect, sometimes honor, sometimes glory, sometimes majesty. And I should have inserted the word prestige, which is also often used. Now these items are quite different. Respect is not the same as honor. For example, people stand up out of respect for some great individual coming into the room, and they bow down when they want to honor. Well, it doesn't happen that much these days, but it used to happen in the past. The people would bow down before someone whom they wish to honor. There's also the majesty, which applies to, we think of it in terms of a king. The king is sort of the maximum, one is due the maximum amount of honor, and so one bows down. And one thing that's interesting about this is that about the case of bowing down to a king. What does that signify? What's the idea of bowing down? Well, it's showing, I think it's admitting that the king is about, the person we're bowing down to is higher than us, doing it physically. And this would be connected with a ranking. Obviously, he's at a higher rank than we are in some sense. And this is sort of the essence of kavod, that it's a kind of one person gives kavod to the other as a sign of seeing a difference in ranking, seeing a matter of hierarchy. But this isn't all, and we'll be talking about this, but this should be in the back of our minds when we in our entire discussion. To what extent is kavod related to ranking and hierarchy? And also, to what extent is it related to more than one person? I mean, could one say that Adam HaRishon, when he was alone, that he had kavod or he was given kavod? And suppose that the society was really a really egalitarian society, if everybody is really considered equal, then would the notion of kavod make sense? Now, does the notion of kavod really depend on the fact that society is not egalitarian, and there are well, castes in India and classes, say, in England, and other ways of people giving ranks. I mean, the idea of a rank is perhaps appears mostly in the army, where you really have very explicitly different ranks, and it's clear that one rank is higher than the other. At any rate, these are the kind of questions which we want to look at. And so let me start with the Mishnah that we're studying. This is the Mishnah toward the end of Perek Daled, chapter 4 of Pirkei Avot. In Hebrew, all the Hebrew will be translated into English. Rabbi Elazar HaKapot should be Omer, Hakin'ah v'ta'ava v'hakavod motzi'im et ha'adam min ha'olam. And now in English, the Rabbi Elazar HaKapar says that jealousy, lust, and glory remove a man from the world. Now there is a similarity, somewhat. I mean, if one thinks of what are the things that one should stay away from and beware of, there's so-called the 7 deadly sins which play a role in Christian tradition. Could you display that in English? That's number 3. Anyway, the seven deadly sins are lust, gluttony, greed, sloth, wrath, envy, and pride. Now, lust and envy and pride, if we identify that with honor, with kavod, then these correspond to what we have in our Mishnah. Of course, there's a very big difference between our Mishnah and this, besides the number of sins, in that the Mishnah is not really talking about sins. The Mishnah is talking about some attributes of people that may lead them to do something wrong, but often they can be used for something good. But there is a danger, and that's why the Mishnah comes and tells us that these things may not necessarily cast a person out of the world. Now, what is it? What do we mean, really? I'm glad that the Mishnah still appears here. What is really meant by what is the problem with kavod in this Mishnah? Well, the problem with the other items, kina and ta'ava, kina meaning lust, kina meaning jealousy. By the way, before I go ahead, I should make clear that jealousy is not the same as envy. One envies another person. Jealousy is more general. Envy means one envies what another person has and I don't have. Jealousy is also related to zealousy, has to do with a passion. And when in Shir HaShirim they talk about kashekish al kin'ah, that it's not referring to envy of another person. It's just referring to the fact that the passion is so great that the lack of display of love is extremely difficult. So that's as far as the word kinna goes. At any rate, kinna here definitely means the idea of a person wanting something that he sees. He knows that it's good, but not directly. He knows that it's good because he sees someone else has it, and he assumes it must be good, or he has some sort of a picture of it. Tava is something which he himself can feel. He knows he has lust for something, and it's generally bodily pleasure. And then there's kavod. So we must assume, in line with the other ones, that the problem with kavod itself is not it's not wanting something. Kavod must refer to the pursuit of kavod, which is something very, very common. So we're talking here about the pursuit of kavod. Except that, in fact, there's an alternative way of looking at this Mishnah, and that it's not referring to pursuit. But just like kin'ah by itself, as something that a person might think of possessing, might think of it as a trait that a person owns, that he has, this is bad. And ta'ava is also something bad just in itself. Then kavod, according to this, is also bad. In other words, the possession of kavod is bad, but of course not necessarily bad, but it could have a negative effect on the person, which in fact we know, and we'll be talking about that a little bit later when we get more deeply into this Mishnah. At any rate, it's interesting to point out that these three items, one can ask why just these three items, kin'ah, tava, and kavod, why are these, what's special about these? And I can only conjecture and answer, but I'll make a remark. What is true is that these items appear in the Bible, appear in Tanakh, where as things where you might say that the Tanakh, the Bible, gives its opinion about these. Of course, it's a negative opinion, but the Tanakh gives its opinion by telling a story which ends up with not a happy ending. Well, so what are the examples of kavod, kin'ah, and ta'ava? Well, the excellent example of kavod, of the lust, of the drive, the pursuit for honor, I think is the story of Purim. The whole story of Purim comes about because Haman did not get enough kavod from everyone around him. He got kavod, in fact, from everybody except for one person. And the fact that this one person, Mordechai, did not give him kavod, he was ready to destroy all the Jews, the whole Jewish nation. And so that, I think, you can't find a better example of kavod leading to disaster. We might point out, of course, that he came to a bad end. He ended with disgrace, and in his case, that might be the interpretation of motzim et ha'adam min ha'olam, cast him out of the world. Just this tragedy from his point of view. What about jealousy or envy? Envy is an example of envy in Tanakh. Is the case of someone who's basically very good. In fact, comes from a good background and was good in every way, but had this one flaw of jealousy. Who is this? It's Shaul HaMelech, King Saul, who at first, in fact, was very fond of David, who later became David HaMelech. He was very fond of David until David had his David slew Goliath, and afterwards, when the Israeli army, Jewish army, came back home, the women were singing that Shaul, Hika Shaul ba'alafav, that Shaul was able to win over 1,000 men, but David was more powerful and was able to conquer 10,000 people. And this enraged Shaul. And from that point on, he couldn't control his jealousy of the popularity of David, just of David's nature itself. And he came to a bad ending when he was he went to the witch of Endor to find out whether he should go to a certain battle. and she told through Shmuel Hanavi, she told him, she informed him that both he and his son Jonathan were going to be killed in this battle, and he went forward. He had to go, and he and his son were killed. So there too, well, was there a connection to this with the kin'ah, with his jealousy? Yes, it was, because that is, he was afraid Shaul, because of some very innocent act that the city of Nov, that someone from the city of Nov did, doing David a favor. Because of that, Shaul, in a rage, had everyone in the city killed, and this is the reason that Chazal give as for his misfortune at being killed in the last battle. Finally, there's the issue of lust, and there I don't really have a good example. It's the example that comes to mind is that of Amnon, the half brother of Tamar, son of David, King David, who raped his half sister, and against her will. I mean, obviously against her will, and it was also incest. And the result of that, I mean, that was lust of a sexual type, and the result of that was that Avshalom became his enemy, and he made enemies because of that. Avshalom was Tamar's brother, and because of these enemies, one of them eventually slew him. So he too came to a bad end. Anyway, you can ask, what does, in general, we see that the pursuit of Kavod is something negative and not desirable, and is that the view? What is the view of Tanakh in general? In Tanakh, what is the view that we find of the value of Kavod? Is it something? If the pursuit of it is undesirable, so it itself should be undesirable, which in fact we say is in our alternative reading of the Mishnah. So what does the Tanakh have to say about this? So here I ask for, let's see, item 4 in my list. It's only in English. When Hannah in Book of Shmuel has a child that she wanted very much, she gives this very, very beautiful song. She gives to Hashem, and sort of the ending of the idea of the song is that that someone who is low at one point is raised, and so she says, the Lord makes poor, he brings low and raises up. He raises the poor out of the dust to set them among princes, and they shall inherit the throne of glory. Yiseh Kavod is considered glory, that is something desirable that a person would want. So that's the blessing to her. We see in another place in the book of Mishna, in the book of Proverbs, which deals a great deal with wisdom, that Shlomo says, Kavod chachamim yinchalu, that the wise are the ones who shall inherit honor. The fools suffer disgrace. But so why is Shlomo saying this? Obviously, in order to encourage wisdom. And what is the gift? The gift is one of the gifts, of course. There are many others. One of the gifts is honor. So honor itself is desirable. Also, on a different level, if we identify honor with a different status, one being higher than the other, we can also deal with this on a larger level, on one nation being higher than the other nation. And this we find is also something desirable, at least as far as the nation of Israel is concerned. So in the Parshat Ki Tavo, Moshe says, this day the Lord thy God has commanded you to these statues to be a people for his own possession and to make you high among all nations. He has made in praise, in reputation, and in honor. You are going to be higher than other nations. So this disparity, this lack of egalitarianism appears as something, at least some situations, as something positive. Now, what about going back to the Mishnah, if you can, item 2, going back to the Mishnah, what is the retribution to those who suffer from kin'ah, tava, and kavod? The retribution is motzi'im et ha'adam min ha'olam. The person is cast out from the world. What does this mean? According to Rashi actually says he's cast out from 2 worlds, Mishna Lamot, this world and the world to come. He's cast out of this world because, in fact, the object of his desire doesn't come to him. He doesn't receive it. And he's cast out of the world to come because he hasn't spent his time in this world preparing himself for the world to come, which is what people should be doing when they're in this world. And, the Rambam emphasizes this point, that in this world, he should try to uplift himself to bring himself closer to God, and he's not doing that when he lusts, or when he's interested in these gains of either what he wants, bodily pleasure, what he sees someone else has, or what we might call social pleasure, the fact that in connection with other people, he's important. I say the word important because, which is related to prestige, and because in fact the word important has inside of it, the P-O-R-T has to do with weight, and the idea of the desire for importance is the desire of carrying weight. In fact, we say this person, this expert carries weight in this situation. Now, carrying weight means that you are part of the world. It's hard to remove you from the world. It makes the person feel that he has a place, that he's really here, that the reality, he's really part of reality. In this context, I might say that also place, not only weight, is associated with kavod, but also place. In many places, Baruch Kol Hashem Mimkomcha. And in many other passages, you see that kavod is identified with place. And again, that's the same idea. The person wants to have a place in the world, and he does these things in order to find a place. He has these tendencies because he wants to find a place. And so what is the retribution? He's cast out of the world. I think this is sort of figurative. Of course, today you might say that weightless, if you want to leave the planet Earth, you have to be weightless at some point. But but it's, in the Mishnah, it's intended in the figurative way that he doesn't get the standing that he wants. He wants to stand in the world, he doesn't stand. That's his punishment. In some way, the punishment fits the problematic tendencies. I should say that there are many places in the Talmud where the problem of pride, of the pursuit of kavod comes up. And one of the famous sayings is, which is sort of a variant of what it says in the Talmud, is that if one pursues kavod, then in fact the kavod flees from him. It eludes him. In the Talmudic saying, instead of kavod, has the notion of greatness, and this appears in no, I don't see it here. Anyway, it's not important. The idea is that there's something about kavod which brings on its opposite in its connection. Somewhere else where you see this irony, you might say, the irony of just the opposite of what you expect, in connection with Kavod is in Pirkei Avot, in the beginning of the chapter Ben Zoma Omer, Mi mechubad, who is the person who is honored, hamachabed et habriot, someone who honors others. And all of his sayings, it's exactly the opposite of what you expect. Ezel chacham, who is the wise man, you would expect that he's the one that teaches everybody. No, the wise man is he who learns from everyone, and so on. So mechubad, to be mechubad, you are the one that realizes that there's Avot implicit in all humans. Let's go to our alternate. Now that we've learned the Mishnah in one way, we have this alternate rendering of the Mishnah in which Kavod itself is something bad, is something could be something undesirable. In the same way that lust and jealousy are undesirable. And here, let me put on the item of number. I think it's number 6. Rabbi Kiva says, well, we'll read this in a minute. We have to, in understanding the Mishnah in this way, what could be wrong with these items? Well, here it's quite a different idea. The idea of what's wrong with these items is that they're based on and they lead to a fallacious perception of reality. The person who's envious sees what his neighbor has as usually much bigger than it really is. He thinks he must have this. The same way with a person who lusts. He sees the object of his lust as something which, if he were realistic, he would. If he were realistic, he would be able to see it in perspective. Now, what about the person who has kavod? Having the kavod can lead a person to a fallacious perception of the world, especially socially. In other words, he sees himself. It's very difficult for him not to see himself as being someone special. And he becomes like a child who sees the whole world as revolving about himself. And he has to realize that this discrepancy between himself and others is very, very small, if at all. And so what is the answer? What is the antidote to this problem of kavod? So Rabbi Akiva says, the appropriate fence surrounding glory is jest. And I would say I would have put in a different word. I would use the word levity, which means not seriousness, not viewing the world as something serious, and which is what happens in games and jokes, that you don't say, you're not really talking about, you're not reporting something about the real world. You use your imagination. Another aspect which appears in terms of games is games of chance. Chance plays a role in many, if not most, games. And a person sometimes who receives glory rather than other people who also might be worthy of this glory, it's a great deal maybe due to chance. It just so happens that he's the one who gets it. Certainly, I think there are people who believe that the Nobel Prize was given to the wrong person because, well, somebody else deserved it. Surely the people who did get it deserved it, but why did they get it? Because, well, it was chance. That's the way it worked out. Okay, so this is our study of the Mishna itself, and in our study so far, the kavod has played a negative role. In other words, it's better not to have it. It's better not to give it. But we always realize that there's a positive side to kavod, and this is stated in the book of Kohelet. Maybe we can have item 7, which is poor translation of what Kohelet says. Basically, Kohelet is saying that that all the progress, all the good things that you find in the world are due. All the good things that people have done, they come out. They are results not of good motives, but rather they come out of competition and the jealousy of Hinat Ishmeilehu, the competition of one man among his companions. He wants to beat the others, and it finds this vanity and futility. This is Hevel. It shouldn't be this way in the world. It shouldn't be that it's competition which leads people to productive, creative acts. So competition leads to progress, and obviously you can see the example today in what's called the race for finding the cure to the corona disease. Why does it have to be a race? Wouldn't it be better if all the people who are working on it would come together and form a team and help one another in it? And so the Kohelet's statement is quite meaningful. And but this really happens in all the sciences, that you can the desire, the pursuit of honor is a motive, is a big motive for much of the things that are done. Many of the things at least can be compared. This is greater than the other. This particular medicine is more important than this other medicine for the sickness that it heals, and so on. And people have an idea of a gradation, of a ranking. But in any case, the working for a prize is working because of honor, doing something because of the honor imposed. At any rate, this is altogether, all in all, as far as the world is concerned, this is something positive, and we can't say that it shouldn't be around. There's one area in which Chazal actually deal with the fact that something can be productive, and also have the blemish of having the blemish that the motive is honor. And this is in Talmud Torah, just in learning Torah itself. Obviously, we know that learning Torah is a good thing, and in fact, through all the generations, the Talmid Chacham who has acquired learning has been esteemed, has been considered high among the ranks of Jewry. And what happens, and what Chazal were aware of, is that students who are learning, the yeshiva students who are learning because they see that their rabbi, their master, gets a lot of honor, and they would like it too. And they know that this will be the case if they reach their aspiration to become great. In fact, the word for rabbi is Rav, and Rav already means greatness. It means, we use it as master, but it means really means greater than you, to be Rav, to be your master. So what do Chazal have to say about this? And here it's very interesting, because they say something which you don't find said. You find it sometimes said in connection with the sciences. I should, by the way, I talk about the sciences, I could also mention the arts, and it's interesting whether artists also, to what extent do they expect honor, or to what extent they really they want to create beauty. And in principle, I think the area of aesthetics is an area where, if it exists, there shouldn't be competition there. Because beauty is something in itself, and is something worthy of itself. We can see, we'll talk about this a little bit later too. At any rate, what do Chazal say about the Kavod for learning? This is, let me see This is item 8 in the list of Kavod. Let's lift it up a little. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, no. This is item 8, and the continuation is more relevant. But the item begins with Rabbi Shmuel says, "Ehov et hamelacha usana et harabanut." Now some people say that this is the mitzvah which more people in Israel perform, listen to this mitzvah, Snat HaRabbanut. But in Yiddish you would say Snat HaRabbanos. It's not the Rabbanut, the institution of Rabbanut that we're referring to. And obviously, the statement that one should prefer working to having authority is really the content of this. And one interpretation of this statement is that even being a leader being a master of Talmud or some other intellectual pursuit, it entails work. There's labor to it, but you should love that labor, but you should despise the result of that labor, which may be achieving greatness. But the continuation of what Rabbi Shmuel says appears further, that a man should not say, "I will learn studiously, but so that I shall be called a wise man, a sage, and an elder. Rather, he should learn out of love of God, and honor will come of itself." The Sof Kavod lavo. You shouldn't strive for the honor. It's true, the honor will come, but it comes of itself. Your interest should be in learning. Now, the phrase for this, which is very common, very useful phrase, is learning Torah lishma, learning for its own sake. Now, actually, what does it mean to learn for its own sake? There's another Mishna in Pirkei Avot which sort of contradicts this. It's a Mishna that says that describing people learning for different people, one who learns just to learn, someone learns in order to teach. But the best of them is someone who learns in order to apply his learning to what he does, in order to follow the mitzvot. The Mishnah says that he is able to learn and to teach and to perform the mitzvot and to have special control, understanding of the mitzvot. So that is not, though, I think most people would say, I'm not sure. I think some people would consider that learning for its own sake. But my master, Rabbi Soloveitchik, defines Limud Torah Lishma as the enjoying the intellectual content of learning Gemara. Now, I think at a certain time this might have seemed quite strange, that there should be enjoyment, that people should enjoy intellectually the learning of Torah. Nowadays, it's actually quite common. We see people actually saying, "Oh, I must start learning Gemara because it's enjoyable." Why is it enjoyable? Because of the logic that appears in it, the consistency that the Talmud insists on. The Talmud, together with the commentaries, insist on, and even a certain beauty to the way that the Talmud works. And so there is an idea of learning for its own sake. And here, just to continue this these statements, the son of Rabbi Lezer, the son of Rabbi Tzadok, says, "Act for the sake of activity." So he generalizes this. And learn Torah for its own sake. He's talking not only about learning, he's talking about the mitzvah, doing mitzvot, where this, again, one of the reasons for saying a bracha, so that people should realize that they're doing the mitzvah for the sake, because it's a commandment of God. Now, actually, I'm not sure. I should check this out, whether when he talks about acting, he's referring to to performing mitzvot. For my purposes, it's a very good statement when you talk about acting in general, that a person should try to enjoy the activity. And so on he goes on to say, and learn Torah for its own sake, and do not make a crown, make of them a crown nor prestige, nor a spade to dig with. And to go on, Rabbi Meir goes on to praise the person who learns Torah lishma. It's one of many sayings praising the person who learns Torah for its own sake. Whoever engages in Torah study for its own sake merits many things. The creation of the entire world is worthwhile for his sake alone. He's called a friend and I don't, the pictures are hiding the next word, but and beloved. Beloved, from him people enjoy counsel and wisdom, understanding and strength, and the secrets of the Torah are open to him. And here I might say that that much of this applies to science and certainly to mathematics, which I'm personally familiar with. The idea of doing it, of doing the research for its own sake. And here the words, the secrets of the Bible here have specific, the meaning, the secrets of the Torah are revealed to him. That has particular meaning because of the blessing, the bracha that we make when encountering a particularly learned man. We say in Jewish things, in Judaism, we say Baruch Shenatan, Baruch Hanoten. I don't have the word exactly, but the term cholek sodo lileav, that he shares his secrets with those who fear him. And the scientist who discovers some basic law about the world is also finding out a secret of God, of how God created the world. And there's an analogy between the laws of the world, the laws of nature, and the laws of the Torah. In both of them, we use the term chok hateva and chukei haTorah. And so in both of them, you can see that these involve secrets. The chok is the type of law that people can't understand logically. There's no intuitive reason for it. So this is a secret, you might say. And this God reveals, if someone discovers in Rabbi Meir's description of the person who learns Torah Lishma, this is what he gains. He's able to understand, in principle, he's able to understand the chukim as well. All right. Let me go to another area now, rather than the area of Torah Lishma, which I feel is this is sort of one of the main messages that I wanted to bring, is that the idea of Torah Lishma, which evolved from Talmud Torah, from learning the Torah, and Chazal with regard to that, is equally applicable to research in science and the learning of science and the world and mathematics. Now, a different side of Kavod, rather than receiving Kavod, we have the notion of bestowing Kavod. We know there are certain mitzvot, we're obliged to bestow Kavod, to give honor to various people. The people that we are familiar with are the parents, one's mother, father, and master, and Rebbe, the person's teacher. What's interesting is that the Kavod what are examples of Kavod? One interesting example, which is interesting in and of itself, is the one form of Kavod that one doesn't say the name of his parents, the first name. He doesn't show familiarity with his parents or with his rabbi to the extent that he calls him, he knows him on a first name basis. This is being overly familiar. And the idea, it's interesting to try to explain this, but one thing that this shows is that this idea of bestowing kavod is not only in front of, not only when you're in the presence of the person, although there are things that come up here in the presence of the person in question. For example, one may not sit in the chair that's in one's father's chair, even when he's not present. Another example is that one, again, this example of naming, referring to one's Rebbe by name, and is also considered a matter of kavod, of honor for the name, for the individual. And I think that this means that kavod is not only a matter of a relation of a hierarchy, of a relative relationship between two people. I give kavod to someone else, but there's something intrinsic that a person has kavod. A person himself has kavod, and so I'm bestowing it on him. It's not that I'm giving him kavod. I'm not really giving him anything. I'll return to this in a minute. But actually, it's something for myself. By giving him kavod, I realize I understand something about him. I understand that this man has something more than just what comes to what I see. There's something more there, and by the name does not really tell you who the person is. The name, it's useful in identifying the person, but it doesn't really tell you who the person is. And this is the reason I claim, or I want to claim, that one shouldn't call his parents or his Rebbe, his master, by their name. One point, if you ask what's common to one's parents and one's master, there is I can answer that the three of them are actually partners in bringing him to the world. But actually, the parents, in an obvious way, bring the child to the world. But his master brings him to something higher than just the physical world. He gives him knowledge. I mean, he's the one that teaches him at first, and general knowledge and spiritual attainment is given by the master. And okay, now this idea of kavod being something intrinsic in the individual, there's no better way to state this than to bring one of the last Mishna in Pirkei Avot. And this is quite amazing. It's item 10 in the list, which I don't have in Hebrew. I only have it in English. All that God created in the world, He created solely for His glory. As it says, all that is called by my name, indeed, it is for my glory that I've created it, formed it, and made it. And so it seems that God has done everything that we know, that we're aware of, for Kavod. This, certainly when I saw it the first time, and for many times, it always struck me as very, very strange. What does the Ribono Shel Olam need Kavod for? But now that we realize that Kavod is not just a relationship between people, it's something intrinsic to someone, then we realize that when God speaks of His Kavod, He's not speaking of something relative that people shall give Him Kavod. In fact, we have, and I should have brought this in the items I displayed. We have a prayer that we're familiar with. Now in David, Hashamayim mesaprim kavod el, Masei Adav magid harakia. The heavens tell of the honor of God, and the firmament tells of His handiwork. So what is the kavod of God? It's it's what he has created. In what sense? Well, actually, in another chapter of Tehillim, in Kuf Daled, Baruch Nafshi, we have the idea that what is it called? That the heavens, or the heavens. Again, I haven't written this down. That the heavens form like a well, the heavens and the sky, they form like a lavashta, oz v'hadal lavashta. It talks there. It's like clothing. That clothing is something which adorns a person. It gives him beauty, but also it enables you to see. It gives you a contact with the individual when you realize that this is clothing, that this is not the entire person. It's after the clothing which allows you to realize that there's more. There's more there. At any rate, this is the extent that you can see, or this is what you can see of the person is his clothing. And what we can see of God are these things that we're saying that God has created these for his glory. These are the things that we are able to experience, that we can see. And now let me bring another chapter from Tehillim, which is also amazing and which fits in very well with this idea of what is meant by the kavod of a person, of a human being, in the sense of something that doesn't make him stand above others, but something which others can appreciate and realize what he has inside of him. And here it is. It's actually item number 9 on the should be on the screen, or at any rate, this is Tehillim Chet, which you may be familiar with. You should be familiar with. At any rate, the translation into English with some skipping. Now, how majestic is thy name in all the earth, who has set thy glory above the heavens. When I behold the heavens, the work of thy fingers, the moon and the stars, which thou hast ordained, then I ask myself, what is man that thou art mindful of him? Vateduehu, ma enosh vateduehu. Uven Adam, and the Son of Man, that you call upon him. That you have, here this is a very important line, yet thou hast placed him slightly below the Lord, and crowned him with Kavod, with glory, v'hadal, and splendor. Here man is slightly below the level of God, and so therefore, in order so we may understand that his Kavod is similar to the Kavod of God. It's not the individual. It doesn't show the individual. The individual can't be seen, but there's more to the individual, and that is and that's described in terms of splendor, which is interesting. That its splendor is an aesthetic value. Man has beauty, and God has beauty. These are the different aspects. There's different ways of looking at Kavod, which I've tried to share with you. Thank you for listening and looking. Thank you very much.